Hi, I'm Amanda Madkins-Choyce, and I want to talk a little bit about Common Core standards, its history, and its structures. So first, a little bit about the history of Common Core state standards. A lot of people think that it's something that's relatively new. It's actually not. Back in the early 1990s, their national standards were adopted. And in 2001, under President Bush, the second President Bush, No Child Left Behind was passed. And in 2008, the National Governors Association and a group called Achieve released a report that's saying that our students did not have standards that are required for them to be college ready. So in 2010, as you can see here on the line here, 2010 there were state adoptions, and then 2015 there were some math adoptions. Now let's talk a little bit about the structure. There are actually two parts of the structure: the college and career readiness portion and the Common Core anchor standards. And if you look, you see the little cogs that are part of the Common Core standards, and they pretty much go along with the 5 domains of language. You have your reading, you have your writing, you have your speaking and listening, you have your language, and of course through all of that you have your thinking. So let's talk a little bit about the English portion of the standards. Again, as I was talking about, you have your 5 domains. You have your reading, your writing, speaking, listening, and your language. And there's some appendices there, but I'm going to focus mostly on the reading and the writing. Because in the reading and the writing, they break it up K through 5 and 6 through 12. The K through 5 portions in the reading and the writing are mostly foundational skills. And then the 6 through 12, they break them up between history and social studies and the more technical subjects. Now, if you look at the structure of the reading components, of course, there's informational and there's literary text. There are 10 standards. The first 9 is pretty much standards in the reading, and then the 10th one is, of course, reading and understanding complex text at the student's level. And these 10 standards go through all grade levels. They're all 10 and they're all basically the same, just a layer on top of each other. The first standard is pretty much, if I can zoom in here, is talking about the portion of the text is standard 1. So you have standard 1, that kind of is the overarching theme. And then on the back end, you have standard 10, which is making sure students can read and understand complex literature at their level. Now let's talk a little bit about the writing. Again, there are 10 standards here as well. The first 3 standards are broken up into different types and purposes of writing. You have the first one, which is writing for argumentative sake. The second one is writing informational text, and the third one is writing for a narrative. And then you have the different components. 4th, 5th, and 6th is the production or distribution of writing. And so this is where you try to get the students to understand how they're supposed to create the writing and how they're supposed to distribute the writing. And then 7, 8, and 9 is talking about how they build and present that knowledge. And then, of course, the anchor 10 is writing over an extended amount of time. So something that I kind of zoomed in on as a first grade teacher, what are some parts that really affect me as a teacher? I noticed throughout the reading and the writing, reading and writing standard, there's a lot of components dealing with evidence and students having to zero in on evidence in the writing text and zero in on their reading. So they're referring a lot to evidence, what the text says, where are some important parts that the author wants you to really explicitly listen to. And then there's a lot of focus on informational text as well, and there's a focus on technology. In fact, there's technology throughout the standards. So in far as distribution, they want to make sure the kids can, do typing on their computer or can do research on using technology. So it's a lot of technology components there. Now I want to kind of, my 3 boys are here, but I want to kind of talk a little bit about the spirals and how the reading and writing standards spiral, because there are 10 anchor standards. And the goal, of course, is to get them ready for college. So I kind of zeroed in on one particular standard, the second standard, which is for first grade, is retelling stories, including key details, and try to understand the central message. and that's RL 1.2. Well, this is my little guy here, Joseph. He's now a third grader. So you take that same standard in first grade and you turn it into the standard that's third. You're spiraling up so the kids can really understand and get a more complex view of the text. So in third grade, they're supposed to recount stories, including fables and folk tales, and be able to determine on their own the central message. So as you can see, you take this standard in first grade and you spiral it down to third grade. Well, I have my third oldest son, Jason, who's now in seventh grade. Same standard, but a little bit more in the text complexity, where they have to determine a theme or central idea of a text and analyze its development over the course of the text. So they're doing a lot more work, a lot more complexity in the standard. And then here's my second oldest, Joshua, who's now in ninth grade. Same standard, but again, it's spiral. So they're really trying to get the kids ready for college. And in this, they're trying to determine a theme, kind of very similar to the seventh grade, but you're trying to see how it emerges and how it's shaped over the course of the text. And these standards are all supposed to spiral to get them ready for, as my oldest son is in college. So that's where that star is there. Now, as far as the structure of math, it's pretty much generally the same. The one thing that is the 97 standards, I should say, but a lot of things they really zone in on is the standards for mathematical practice, which are ways that they want students to think about math. Their habits of mind is what they call it. So those are your mathematical practices. But of course, in kinder, they really focus on counting and cardinality. You have your operations and algebraic thinking, numbers and operations, base 10, fractions, measurement and data, geometry. So pretty much a lot of the same stuff, but they really zoned in on the mathematical practices. So with that said, I really want to stress the focus of Common Core in my classroom, because I do think it's really important to increase students' ready for college readiness. And even in first grade, as a first grade teacher, I'm trying to make sure my students are really understanding the text and really using those mathematical practices so that, again, they will be ready for college. Thank you.